I think that was the countdown anyway, because I had a camera in the way. So, yes, we have Jax with us tonight, and it's just me, actually. Just me and Jax tonight. We don't have everybody else because people are working and are on holiday. So how are you, Jax?
Doing wonderful. How are you, my friend?
Oh, peachy as always.
Love it. I love it. I just drove home on a 20, well, technically it should have been 21. It was more like 26-hour ride home from work. I'm exhausted and I'm loving life. It's Friday.
It sounds like an interesting life. I have to travel an hour to work and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take the hour.
So what's been going on with you since the last time we chatted?
Oh my God. I live in my car, my friend. So I'm filming for Dark Echoes, season 2 for Dark Echoes. So I'm constantly traveling for that, constantly traveling for speaking for The Silent, working on a ton of big things, trying to get sponsorships for that show. One of the biggest things that I've found has been very difficult is being able for the team and I to travel, all over the United States. And we do this free out of, our own pocket. So when you're moving around with a big crew of people and, you're trying to get these cold cases solved, it starts to become quite costly. So we've been looking for sponsorships. So I've been spending a ton of time reaching out to different companies or whatever, looking for sponsorships for the show. So that is what I'm doing. And then, of course, my day job. So that never stops.
Keeps you absolutely flat out, doesn't it?
Yep. Sure does.
What exciting has been going on with the TV shows at the moment? Anything you can tell?
Yeah, so we actually just picked up a new case. I'm very, very excited. It's going to be episode 2 for the series. Without giving away too much of the case, it is wild. It is a wild, wild case. It was just rounding 25 years. The victim was initially believed to have unalived themselves, when in fact that wasn't the case. They were murdered. It is a wild, cold case. So we are just in the beginning stages of that investigation. So I'm very excited about that. I have a ton of interviews and meetings coming up for that case. My FBI consultant is working on this with us really closely. So that's always awesome to have. And then, at the end of the day, we like to get in there and do our paranormal thing. So who could ask for anything better?
Oh, it's the best of everything, isn't it, when you think about it? Because we love our paranormal, and with what you do, it ticks all your boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. I'm very excited. Our episode 1, our pilot episode, again, without giving away too much, took such a plot twist turn so unexpectedly. I just can't wait for the show to air, because we ended up going in with one case and coming out with like an explosion of stuff. So it's going to be one killer season. No pun intended.
I like it. What I thought I'd do tonight, because when we're all together, we chat about all sorts of weird stuff and we have an absolute ball every time we all get together. But with it just being you and me tonight, I thought I would jump back to the start and what actually got you involved in the paranormal in the first place?
That's a good one. Growing up in an extremely haunted, evil home. My parents bought this home when I was 4 years old. It was my childhood home. I was there till I was 18. And the home itself was once owned by a very famous businessman of a well-known company. We'll just say that.
Okay.
My parents, got a steal on the house. That should have been red flag number 1. But back in the early 80s, you didn't speak about ghosts. So it was not long after we moved in that really small things started happening, but it quickly escalated to big things. Growing up, 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, the things that I witnessed were astronomical, to say the least. I come from a very old school Italian family. So, the only entities that exist are guardian angels and God. So we don't talk about ghosts. But the things that were happening in that home were nothing short of malevolent, and things took a very dark turn. Our home burnt down to the ground, not once.
That's a turn off.
Twice, but almost 3 times, and all 3 were unexplainable causes. I've had, as a child, babysitters that came over to babysit me as a kid and them run out of the house screaming their head off, leaving me home alone, while my parents are at work because things were that bad. And it wasn't just, jump scare moments. There was physical attacks. But what really kind of kicked off my interest, while everybody else, my brothers and sister were terrified, for me it was like, what the heck's going on? I need to know more. I was the black sheep of the family. I'm not the norm, you know what I mean? In case you can't tell. I wanted to know more. And so I became very intrigued by it when I was in high school.
That was going to be my next question, actually, because knowing you, was going to be scared stiff by what was going on, or did it fascinate and then totally draw you in?
Drew me in. The one kind of founding moment that really sealed the deal for me. I mean, I had seen things, as a kid growing up, but you just didn't talk about it. Until I was 15 years old, sophomore in high school, my girlfriend and I, we went back to my house after a typical high school party where there may or may not have been some drinking. And so my girlfriend slipped over my house to kind of hide it from her parents that she had been drinking. It was like 2 a.m. I was in my bedroom getting ready to go to sleep. And the next thing I know, I hear blood curdling scream. I mean, terrifying scream. I'm like, oh my God, something's wrong. I run out into the kitchen and I find my friend underneath my kitchen table, in this position, rocking, crying hysterically. She goes, I need to leave. I need you to call my mother now. I'm like, it's 2:30 in the morning. My mother needs to come and get me now. I said, what is wrong with you? She said she was standing in front of the mirror, fixing her hair, and a man appeared behind her. But this man appeared behind her was not like a man like you. This was an evil looking man with blood coming down his head. And she said the growl that came out of him was not human at all. And it terrified her to the point that she made her mother come and get her at 2:30 in the morning. And she lived over an hour away. But she would not stay in my house. And that sealed the deal for me. I had seen people run out of our house before growing up. But when you're younger, you don't really pay so much attention to it. But when things started happening to me personally, that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to figure you out, my friend. We're going to figure this out. And that was kind of it from there. I joined my first legitimate paranormal team my freshman year at college. And that was it. I was hooked, line, sinker. And then I went into, the law enforcement field and grew a passion for investigations there. Kind of intertwined with both of them.
When you were doing your law enforcement stuff, obviously completely separate to any paranormal, did you ever come across any cases where your brain was going, I know what that might be, but obviously mainstream investigations were not looking in that direction?
Absolutely. I have one case that I was working, and my partner was very much a non-believer. Adamant non-believer. And, at work I didn't talk about, what I did on the side, especially because, it makes you look crazy. Especially in the earlier years, when you didn't say things like, I investigate the paranormal. You would have locked up in an asylum. But we had a case that came about, and my partner and I both witnessed an object move in front of us at the scene of the crime. It was while we were in the middle of having a conversation about the case itself, and this object moved as if to say, this is it right here. He looked at me and he said, don't you ever speak of this again. And he walked right out, and that was that. But I've come in contact with so many law enforcement professionals, firemen, paramedics, all that have said they've had experiences while on the job, especially paramedics and firemen seem to have quite a bit experiences because, you're dealing with that instant moment of death. It's pretty fascinating. It's kind of like the secret society. There's actually a lot of paranormal investigators that are law enforcement and paramedics.
Yeah, I was involved in a TV show some time back, which never actually went to air, but went through the whole process. And actually, there was a gentleman who has already been on TV, and it was a law enforcement type situation where there was a few cops who are now paranormal investigators doing a lot of the investigations, but they were doing it in a forensic way as the police would do it. You might know the
Right.
TV show, but I'm not really going to mention it on here because we're not talking about them. But it does take me back to, yes, there were a lot of people that I know of in the law enforcement field who are into it, but they keep it very quiet because of, like what you said, professional blowback.
Yeah, yeah, and it's very true. I had a colleague of mine I ran into years later that follows me on Facebook and said to me, I would have never in a million years thought that you were into paranormal investigation. I would have never ever thought it. You gave no inclination. And I said, yeah, because I couldn't. You can't. That's just something you can't do while you're on the job. Unless you get very lucky and your chief or your commissioner is a paranormal investigator, but chances are he's not going to let you know that either. So there's just kind of even today, there's still very much a kind of an overcast of negativity in certain areas when people say they investigate paranormal. I had one officer tell me that I was downright crazy, and if I worked alongside him, he would not trust me to stand by his side, knowing that I investigate the paranormal.
Wow.
And that's a pretty harsh thing to say. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the stigma that comes along with, investigating even today. We've come a long way for sure, but I still think we have a long way to go.
When you were working on some of your cases, did you ever work with psychics? I know you see them on the TV shows and things like that, but have you ever been in a case where they did call a psychic in for something and you're like, well, I'm not psychic, but I know a lot to do with the paranormal? Or was that something
Not while I was on the job. No. And it's funny because my team's psychic now, when I approached her with joining the team for the cold case investigations, she said to me, this is something I've wanted to do my whole life, is use my gift for actual good. But I have come in contact with other departments that have. In fact, one department that I know of, he's a sergeant, detective. He'll tell you right out, I swear all day long by my psychic, she's actually on the payroll. There's not a lot of them, but there are some. And if they're putting you on the payroll, there's a darn good reason.
Mm-hmm. That's it. All right, we're going to jump forward a little bit now. So you got as far as saying that you joined your first paranormal team. And how did that go? Did you enjoy the way they did things, or were you like me where you wanted to do things slightly differently?
My very first team I joined, I was very shy, believe it or not, because I didn't no, I didn't know enough to where I felt comfortable speaking up. That being said, what it did for me was it gave me the drive to educate myself. And that's when I started getting into actually taking courses, paranormal and dark entity investigations. And that grew into a whole nother passion and a whole nother area of what we do, because before we really built a team to investigate cold cases, we did house calls all the time, and most of them were involving dark entity cases. So in the very beginning, I kind of just knew my place, but as I educated myself and as I learned more, I did speak up quite a bit. So by the time I was on my second team, I had some opinions. I feel like when you're speaking of paranormal communities, and teams, there are just so many now. It kind of makes you, I'm probably going to get blowback for saying this, but when have I ever kept my mouth shut? No. I feel like a lot of people do it because it's the cool thing to do. And you don't know much of any of what they're dealing with. And they don't educate themselves, and they think, oh, I bought a REM pod this weekend, I'm an investigator. And that scares
REM pod.
That scares me because those are the people that are opening doors they don't know how to close.
Exactly.
and bringing things to light that should stay in the dark. So I do try to educate people as much as I can, especially when we do like our events and we do our live investigations, and really try to take the time to help people understand what it is they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thinks it's very much a game, but you and I both know that there are things out there that are not to be messed with.
There's some very serious consequences.
It's scary when you think about it.
All right, excuse me, I got stuck in my mouth then. Don't know what that came from. I was actually speaking with a guy earlier tonight who he comes on our page, and he's been chatting with me privately. He's just come out from the UK recently, and he's really heavily super keen on the whole thing, and he's going out and doing a lot of investigations of places around here by himself. And he actually mentioned about starting his own team up tonight, and I think he's just put it out there on a couple of pages if anybody might be interested. What would be your key points for anybody starting their own team, how to do it the right way?
Educate yourself. Don't just buy a bunch of equipment and call yourself a team. Make sure that you have individuals on your team that are actually experienced and have time under their belt. Too often do I see teams getting together, and it's literally just random people who have no background in it. And by all means, I'm not saying that people that aren't experienced should investigate. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think it's so important. It sounds so cliche, but it's so important to do your research and take the time to really educate yourself on what you are dealing with. It is too easy to get an attachment or
get yourself in trouble.
Yeah, we'll just stop there and say that. Yeah, it's too easy to open a door that you have no idea how to shut. I mean, look at how many TV shows are out there. My Haunted this and My Haunted that, right? And it's all about people who started out just playing with their friends on a Ouija board, or started out as a paranormal team, but we didn't know what we were doing. It is critical to educate yourself and protect yourself and understand what that means.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to work out what kind of a team you want to be as well, because saying team doesn't necessarily mean a team. If you've got a bunch of guys that are just going out to public places and having a bit of a ball, that's one thing. But the people like you and I that actually get involved in residential cases, and obviously a lot of the cold case stuff that you get involved with, you need to know your stuff, and you can't be, as you said, opening doors and creating issues, because so many people, if they do open a door, don't know how to close it, and they can potentially leave families in a worst case scenario, worse than when they actually went in there. And that's not what we're all about. I had a family reach out to me last summer. I still get chills thinking about this. Join one of the Facebook groups and put a notice out, hey, we have something in our home. We're looking for help. Is there anybody that can help us? And this team reached out to them and said, hey, yeah, we're a paranormal investigation team and we could help you. This was a group of young adults that had only been a team for a few months. Nobody on their team had any formal training or experience or education or background in the paranormal at all. And all they did was go into this home and create an absolute entity bomb, because what was just moving shadows turned into physical attacks, because they went in there with a Ouija board and started making contact with entities and had no knowledge of how to actually use a Ouija board and no clue what they were dealing with. This family suffered greatly at the hands of their ignorance. Yeah.
So I am a huge supporter of experienced investigators teaching inexperienced investigators and sharing knowledge. Huge supporter of it, because at the end of the day, nobody gets into paranormal investigations to make money or make it their full-time job in a sense of this is your career. You do it because you have a passion and a love for it, and it all comes from wanting to help people at the end of the day. Yes, it also comes from being beyond fascinated and loving what you're looking at and dealing with, because at the end of the day, we all want that 100% guarantee. I do believe that investigators who, like you and I, that go out and help families, it's about helping families and helping people that need that assistance and guidance. And so I think it's so important that, you know, like I'll share as much knowledge as I have every chance I get to anybody who will listen.
Yeah.
Not because I want to hear myself talk, but because I've seen too many times inexperienced people end up in a bad situation. And I have people reach out to me all the time. Hey, what do I do about this? Or what do I do about that? But I think it's super important to understand that loving the paranormal does not make you an investigator, and being careful.
An investigator. I mean, going back to the Ouija boards that you're talking about, anybody can fire up a Ouija board and get things happening because the intent's there and that's it. The issue is not knowing how to close the board down at the end of a session. A lot of people just take it away and that's it. The door is still open where anything else can walk through or come through, and they're creating, like what you called it, a nicer way, a spirit bomb, whatever you called it. I would have just called it a shitstorm.
An entity bomb.
Yep, that's the one. But okay, so you went from there and you got into your investigation stuff. At what point did you suddenly realize you were going to end up traveling all over the country on a weekly basis to cover all of this and record it?
So in 2017, when I officially founded Forsaken Souls, I did so solely for the purpose of investigating the cold case and missing person cases. I wanted to take both my love for criminal investigations and my love for paranormal and see what I could do to combine them. I never expected to have as many families reach out to me as I've had. I never expected for it to become as popular as it became. I truly just did it because I wanted to help people, and I wanted to do it in a way that something that I was passionate about. It wasn't until I had someone approach me, a streaming network approach me, say, you know, have you ever thought about making a show out of what you do? I'm like, no, I am not a TV person. No, I just recorded, I documented our cases, and that was really all I was doing. And they were like, well, you know, I think if you make this into a show, you'll be able to help more people. And so that's how the show kind of came about. The intent was never to become a show. It just kind of happened. And then I realized, well, if having the show helps me reach more families and help more families, then I'm all for it.
Sounds good. We're just about out of time, but yeah, one of the things I was going to just mention is that I'm the same as you. I'll document cases, and that's why you never see any of our real cases up on the internet anywhere. They're documented, but that's it. It's for private eyes only. We might, when we go out doing public hunts and taking people out and showing them how to investigate the right way, we might do some of the fun stuff that you see in the movies and the TV shows and things like that. But they're not the real deal. That's just playing with the toys and then getting them used to going out and doing that sort of stuff. But before we go, do you want to just do a shout out for your Facebook team and all of your socials and things like that so people know where to find you if they want to jump on over?
Yeah. So you can find Forsaken Souls on Facebook. You can either come to my Facebook page under Jaclyn LaRen, LAREN. Facebook made me put my last name on there now with the new blue check thing. So now my last name's on there as well. So you can either come to my Facebook page, and then I can add you to both our private group, which is Forsaken Souls Paranormal Research Group, or you can go to our Facebook page, which is Forsaken Souls Paranormal Research Group. Our TikTok and Instagram and YouTube are all the same handles. So Forsaken Souls _PRG. We have a ton of content on there. But also if there are families that are looking for help with a cold case, you know, of a loved one or missing persons, by all means, please reach out to us. We are more than happy to speak with you about your case. And we also are looking for sponsors to help us continue helping families all over the country, you know, solve their cold cases. So If anybody knows any great sponsors, that'd be a huge help too.
That is absolutely awesome. Yeah, so reach out to Jaclyn. She is very dear to all of us here at the Shadow Files. We love you guys. And we're going to have you on again in a couple of weeks where it's going to be a lot more fun. And we're going to talk about our topic again, you know, certain fruits and nuts, because there's sort of activity floating around again.
Oh, you have to fill me in. So I'm finished filming for Dark Echoes as well. Shout out to Dark Echoes Paranormal. Love you guys. We finished filming season 2 like mid-June-ish, so I'll free up some more time as me. I'm very curious to hear what kind of fruits and nuts are floating around.
Well, you'll hear it all when the guys are back. I can guarantee you that.
I can do it.
Jax, we love having you on here all the time. We'll have you back on again in a couple of weeks. So until then, everybody, say goodbye to Jax. Take it easy, matey.
Bye. Thank you.